Good evening. Right, so for those of you who have come down onto your spines, just give yourself a moment to allow for the spine to adjust with gravity. And we're going to come up into a cross-legged position while I talk through the session tonight. So our focus for this evening session is going to be on the heart space, Anahata chakra. So Anahata means unstruck. So we're very much dealing with a sense of softening around this region. When we think about the heart space, we're thinking about the thoracic spine, which is this region of the spine. It's neither the lumbar nor the clavicular spine, it's in between. We think about the space around the breastbone. We think about the space around the shoulder blades and the shoulder girdle, because all those regions, including the position of the pelvis, have an effect on the way that the spine moves. So often we're in a kind of flexion like this. And what we're trying to do with our spinal extensions is open up the front line of the body, contracting the back line of the body. So it's really good for posture. But it's very much with a sense of softness when we work into Ustrasana camels. So for camel, you might need a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, that's fine. We can use something else. We can use the floor. And we'll be working into Chakrasana wheel. There'll be some opportunities to explore various things, and these are optional. Bunny hops. It's really optional for you. So with that in mind, I'd like you to begin to pay attention to where your breath is in your body today, noticing your sit bones as they settle against the block or the floor that you're seated on. And you can bring the palm of the hand into the sternum, breastbone, and just notice how that region feels. Maybe bring the other hand to the belly. So we have this really interesting connection between the gut brain, the belly, the heart space, and this vagus nerve that moves between these aspects up through the sternomastoid into the face and the ears. So the vagus nerve. So you may want to bring the hand to the belly, noticing if there's any movement here. Beginning to breathe through the nostrils, nasal breathing. Closing the mouth and noticing whether the nostrils feel clear and the sinuses. And then bring that hand that was on your belly onto the side of the face. And begin to touch into this sense of the face-heart connection. So you've got this relationship between the facial muscles, this social engagement system. 1 second. And that relationship moves down through the sternomastoid, down into the heart, and down into the digestive system, the gut brain, the belly. Just noticing how this region feels. And under the hand, around the sternum, is there a certain sense of feedback that you're getting? It might be the case that you feel quite hard, there may be a rigidity there may be an achy sensation, maybe it feels quite tender. Just notice how that is for you today. Lovely. And then releasing the hands, we're going to inhale, lifting the arms up over the head, beginning to extend the breath. Exhale, draw the arms back down. Inhale, maybe lifting the drishti or the gaze slightly higher this time as you lift up through the arms. Exhale, bringing the hands down, bringing the gaze down in front of you. Inhale, accentuating that extension. Exhale, allowing for a flexion to come in, clasping the hands behind the spine and reaching out behind you, noticing how the shoulders feel. Just acknowledge how they are, and then release the arms up towards the sky, and exhales come into an easy rotation, easy twist here. Inhale, allow for those vertebrae to stack on top of one another. Exhale, finding some rotation here. Inhale, really extend through the belly here as you allow for the air to rush in. Exhale, belly draws inwards. Inhale and exhale. On your next inhalation, lifting up through the arms and rotating to the other side. Notice how this side feels. Inhaling, rooting down through the sit bones, creating space between the vertebrae. Exhale, drawing belly Inhale, belly expands and widens. Exhale, belly draws in. Inhale and exhale here. Inhaling, releasing the arms up towards the ceiling, and exhale, padding the hands forwards. Coming down onto your elbows, or indeed bring your forehead down. Wherever you are, maybe you're on your hands, just exploring the hips. And after the next inhalation, padding the hands back towards the shins. We're going to pivot onto the sit bones, swap the legs over, and creep the hands forwards, feeling onto this side, this hip here. Breathing and exhaling into any areas that feel maybe there's some restriction. And then padding through the hands. We're going to inhale the arms up and overhead, but this time the right hand's coming over, the left hand is coming towards the back. And then we're going to spiral the arms to the other side. Breathing. Inhaling through nostrils, exhaling. It may be the case the hands do not want to come together. As we move slowly through these movements, coming into Gomukhasana, cow face pose with the arms. And over to the other side, breathing smoothly through the nostrils. Lovely. Releasing the arms out to the side now. We're going to reclasp the hands behind the spine. And you'll come into one type of clasp here. I want you to change your clasp to your least habitual clasping action, if that makes sense. And we're going to exhale and come forwards into a yoga mudra. The forehead may meet the ground. Maybe you bring the ground up to meet the forehead. And then we inhale up with a sense of control. Exhale, lifting up with the clasped hands. Inhale. 3 times, exhale. Inhale. As we bring the hands forwards, bring the fingers into the clasp that you feel more comfortable with. Exhale forwards. Feeling into some space here around the shoulders. Inhale, exhale, forehead comes forward. Take this at your own pace. If it feels rushed in the pace that I'm doing, please move slower. And then exhale, and bring the hands back to meet the ground. Lovely. Releasing the arms, give them a bit of a shake. Now we're going to utilize the eye muscles to release the neck muscles. So firstly, let's bring the right hand onto the sternum, about the left side of the sternum, in fact, making contact with the heart space here. We're then going to utilize the eyes. So we're moving the eyes down to the corner of the left socket. Once we've done that, breathing freely, we're going to make the face move in the same direction as the eyes. So we track the head to where the eyes have moved to. And then the eyes now are going to lock down to the right corner of the eye socket, and the face is going to follow. Breathing freely. The eyes move down to the left corner of the eye socket, and the face moves over to the left. The eyes move down to the right corner of the eye socket, and the face moves. And again, one more time, locking the eyes down to the left corner of the eye socket, and then following with the face. Releasing the eyes and bringing the face to the front. Now this time we're going to look over to the right, but turn the eyes into the left corner of the eye socket. And then we're going to take the eyes down to the right corner of the eye socket and move the face over to the left. So this is where it gets really tricky. So the gaze of the eye socket, you're looking down at the corner of the left side and then moving to the right. And it's going to feel really peculiar. And then move the eyes to the right corner of the eye socket while you look to the left. So you've flipped what you're doing. Now look down to the left corner of the eye socket, remembering to breathe. Notice if you're holding your breath when you concentrate in this way. And lastly, looking down into the right corner to turn the face to the middle and release the eyes. Just notice how that feels. They've worked quite strongly. We're going to bring ourselves down onto our 2-foot support now into semi-supine. So popping yourself down onto your spine here and allowing for it to receive the gravity and surrender into the ground. We're going to take the arms up towards the ceiling, reaching up towards the ceiling. So you've got this sense of popping, and then draw the arms into the shoulder socket. So you're drawing the shoulder blades together. And the feet are the hip width apart. Now with a sense of rolling, we're going to tuck the tailbone under, drawing the knees away from the midline of the body and rolling up through the vertebra one by one into Dvipadipitham. So you've got this lovely massage as you massage down through the thoracic and down to the lumbar, dropping the pelvis and making a little lumbar arch, so a slight pelvic tilt, and then come up again. Now you may want to bring the breath into this action, in which case, if you want to explore, we can inhale, rolling up all the way up into in between the shoulder blades, and exhale, tucking and rolling each vertebra down, and allowing for that little lumbar curve to come in. Inhaling and exhaling, feeling into all of that movement, nice and slow and smooth. One more time. Feeling into this bridge now, you feel the certain amount of pressure into the clavicular spine, and then drawing yourself back down. Let's open up the arms nice and wide, and we're going to cross them over into Garandasana arms. So the right arm is crossing over the left arm. Now you may be able to bring the arms beyond the elbows to fold the backs of the hands together. So you've got Garandasana arms. Some of us may be able to bring the palms together, so you've got a double crossing action taking place. Now move those elbows up towards the chin to feel into the back of the shoulder girdle. How does that feel? And we're going to bring the legs into it. So with a sense of containment, I'm going to draw the shins parallel to the ground with the feet in a flexion. We're going to cross the right leg over the left, and then double cross the feet over if it's available to you. Now, option here, as you inhale, bring the knees away and the elbows up to the chin. And as you exhale, draw knees and elbows together, maintaining a sense of stability around the back of the pelvis. So the lumbar is not coming into lordosis or an arch. You're protecting yourself. So exhaling and inhaling. A couple more times, just be aware of anything untoward. You have to be careful sometimes with these contractions around the front of my abdomen. And then releasing the arms, we're going to widen those arms to the side and drop the knees to the left. Come into Jatara Parivriti, supine rotation. Keep those shoulder blades grounded. Make sure they touch down, as they may want to lift on one side. And then if the neck feels happy to do so, gaze over to the right hand, breathing here into your supine rotation. Inhaling into soft belly, exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. And then bringing the gaze back up towards center. We're going to roll the knees in towards the midline and release the legs. Bring them back down. So we're going to bring the arms into play the opposite way around this time. So left over right, I believe, this time. Elbows come beyond one another. Backs of the hands come together. Palms coming in. So you've got the hands in their position. Bring the knees up off the ground, or the shins in parallel. And we're going to cross the left over the right. And coming into your one cross or double cross, with a sense of containment around that lumbar, exhaling, drawing elbows and knees in. It doesn't have to be a strong movement. It can be a subtle one. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhale, exhale. A couple more times, whatever suits you in terms of the strength that you have. Lovely. And then inhaling and opening the arms out to a T shape. We allow for the legs to roll over to the right side, keeping the shoulder blade down. Now, if the legs need to splay out in any other way, let them do that. And then bring the gaze over to the left hand if the neck feels comfortable to do so. So indeed, if the legs want to be stacked and they prefer to windscreen over, please allow them to do that. When you bring the legs into Garandasana, it can be quite a strong rotation. Gaze coming back through center, releasing the legs up towards the ceiling and decross the legs, coming into a tiny little ball. Give yourself a little bit of a hug and we can rock and roll along the spine and then rock side to side, giving the spine a bit of a massage. And we're going to make our way into a position that utilizes gravity. So we need to get hold of a brick. And if you don't have a brick, something else will do. And I'm going to show you for the sake of demonstration without a blanket, but you can put a blanket on top to make it more comfortable for yourself. You may want to get some padding behind the head. So imagining where the head's going to be. This brick or rolled up something or other, or your book, for instance, needs to come underneath that area. So in between the shoulder blades, the thoracic. So we're draping ourselves over a prop and bringing the head down into something that prevents the neck from coming into anything untoward and unhelpful. So ideally, the back of the neck is nice and long. So you may be able to see that I'm now draped on top of the brick, and you may need to adjust where that brick is to come into quite an extreme spinal extension within the thoracic region of the spine, which normally is in a flexion. See if you can allow for the body to drape over this. This is similar to the restorative pose that we often use a bolster for. Can you surrender yourself into this position? Just notice what arises. There may be some sense of restriction, something preventing you from softening. When we think about language and the way that we consider this midsection of the spine, when we specifically call it a cage, the rib cage, it's actually it's not very helpful to suggest that it has a rigid form. Sometimes in yoga we call it a rib case because it gives us the freedom to consider that it's meant to be a flexible region of the spine. Yes, it protects the organs, but it also needs to have this flexibility to allow for the diaphragm to open on the breath, to allow for the heart and the liver to be massaged on every breath within our diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing. And if we allow for this region to become rigid and tight, that's to the detriment of our health. So breathing into this space and just notice whatever arises. And I'm going to read something to you while you rest here and just exhale into this. Take a moment to celebrate your breath. Each breath is free and there is an infinite supply. You will never run out. Each inhalation is an opportunity for a new moment. Each exhalation is a chance to release the old. Each breath expands your interior, softens your resistance, and allows you to open wide. And this process of breath is a constant example of the perpetual exchange between inner and outer worlds. So just notice how that area feels when you have this sense of support. It may feel quite vulnerable. There is often an emotional need and response when we bring the shoulders in and protect around the heart space. That's a protective instinct, and that's very natural to our being. So if you find this quite vulnerable, just know that that's perfectly normal. And then roll yourself out, bring those props to the side, and allow for your spine to come back onto the ground in your semi-supine. Allow for everything to settle. Just notice how that feels. Now, when we work with these spinal extensions, it's often the case that there's a sense of lightness that comes after the practice, and we're only beginning to work into this practice. You may feel a change or maybe not. Just notice whatever is as you rest here. And we're going to explore very briefly something that will help us later on. We're going to straighten one leg, left leg out. Imagining that leg is like heavy weights dropping away. There's nothing to hold on to specifically around the hips. Allow that leg to be very heavy. Now we're going to bring the arms up towards the ceiling, allowing for the arms to rest up towards the ceiling here. And we're simply going to press the leg down into the floor and notice what the response is in the body. So you've got one leg working as you draw the knee away, and you've got the left side, so the opposite side to the bent leg, being very heavy and free and releasing. And just notice what the response is. So if the body is relaxed, it may be the case that the hip is lifting and you're getting this side to side action. And allow that to take place. And then we're going to try the other side. So bending the left leg, unfortunately, having to use a muscle there to do that. Drop that right leg away. So it's dead heavy. And do the same thing, pressing down with the left side with a heavy leg. So what we're aiming for here is a sense of release into the iliopsoas, the hip flexor. And you've got this rocking action. And that can be really useful to us to be able to switch on a muscle and then release and let go of a muscle so it doesn't need to work hard. And that will begin to make more sense later on in the session. So we're now going to bring the legs into the chest, Apanasana, wind relieving pose, with an exhalation, allowing for the knees to come in towards the chest. And an option to rock and roll along the spine, if that feels right for you today. And we're going to end up in our all fours position, crossing the shins over, bringing the hands in front and coming back into tabletop. Feeling into the hands, spreading them nice and wide. We're not going to spend too much time on the hands here, but with that sense of the thoracic in between the shoulder blades, imagine someone's pulling with a rope, and as they're pulling with the rope, you allow for that area to come into a flexion, dropping the head so the head's nice and heavy, shake the head out. We're then going to inhale through neutral, exhale, allow for the breastbone to move forwards. So the extension's coming through from that region. Inhaling, neutral, exhale, flexion. In between these modes, breathing and allowing for the spine to unfurl, to unravel, but really focusing on this movement as it's coming from that region behind the heart space, in between the shoulder blades, not so much the lumbar. Lovely. And then coming back into your neutral, bring the right hand in front of the face. Inhale the arm up towards the ceiling and thread the needle. You're dropping the side of the face down. Inhale, release up. Exhale, thread the needle. We're going to hold this for a moment, allowing for the face to come down to the mat and reach out through the arm, if that feels available to you, to reach out along the mat. Breathing here into the shoulders, and then inhale, bring the hand back to the face and unfurl and release. The left hand now comes in front of the face as you inhale, reaching up towards the ceiling. Exhale, thread the needle, bring the side of the face down towards the mat. Inhale and exhale. This time, opportunity to hold that. Indeed, if you want to move between these points rather than hold, feel free to do so. And then releasing that bent arm, straightening the arm out in front. So you've got a half puppy thread the needle effect. Breathing in here, feeling into the shoulder before bringing the hand back towards the center and unraveling your needle. Now we're going to bring the hands forwards to come into puppy pose. The buttocks reach up towards the ceiling. The thighs are in a 90-degree angle with the shins. Coming into your puppy pose, allowing for the heart space to move down towards the mat. Feeling the shoulder blades move, or indeed not move, depending on this area of the spine. And then bringing the hands back towards the face. We're going to come back into our first balasana of the evening. Maybe bringing one side of the face down onto the hands. Bring the floor up to the face if necessary. And then bringing the gaze to the other side. Lovely. Now, knowing where our balasana is, that sense of proprioception of our body in space, we're going to extend the arms out in front, reaching, and then we're going to allow for ourselves to unfurl. So we're not coming straight into upward facing dog, we're just allowing for the fronts of the hips to release, and then we're going to sink back. So we're teasing our body to open. And then maybe we come forwards this time and allow for the hips to drop. And maybe then we come back again without feeling like we have to come into the full pose and a rigid sense of striving. And then maybe this time you come forwards, the shoulder blades come back to meet one another, and you open up around the front of the breastbone, the sternum, and then rock back. So it's really key here to listen to your body. Notice if the lumbar is twinging. One more time, we try that upward facing dog, allowing for that movement to come all the way up the spine, not just in one section, and then bring the hips back. And to open up any lumbar tension, bring yourself into your balasana with the hands down alongside. And just stay with that for a moment if anything happened within the upward facing dog. Otherwise, we're bringing ourselves into tabletop, and we're going to extend through the left leg, swiveling through the right, coming onto the right hand into Parigasana, gate pose. So the hand, the knee, and the foot are in one long line, and you're on the side of the foot here. So you've got the length of the foot in line with the knee, in line with the hand. Breathing into your half gate. We're going to windscreen the arm now, following with the gaze, feeling into the shoulder mobility. Inhale, and maybe exploring how much space there is within the shoulders, as this can be very variable. So it's almost like a back crawl action from your half gates. Lovely. And then we're going to bring that hand forward, swivel the foot in, bring that knee in, coming to the other side. This time we extend through the right leg, swivel the left leg out, bring that left hand into line, and come into your half gate. So you've got this lovely long line from the side of the foot up to the hip point and the armpits. When you found your side gate, your Parigasana, we're going to follow with the drishti as we windscreen, or windmill rather. It's not much of a windscreen action. Windmilling the arm up and over, following with the gaze, feeling into how much shoulder mobility is available to you today. Lovely. And after you've felt into that space, swivel the hip, the leg back in, the knee back in, the foot comes in, come back to your all fours. Lovely. Now take the hips back this time, clasp the hands behind the buttocks. Now you may want some padding underneath the head here. We're going to come into rabbit. So we'll be rolling from forehead to crown of the head, making sure the shoulders are happy in this position. If you know this isn't going to be great and you'll get to a point where the shoulders say no, bring the hands down into tripod and don't stress them too much. So we're coming from this action, we bring the forehead down onto some padding and then roll up onto the crown of the head, allowing for the arms to wing out, bringing the palms of the hands together and rolling back. Rolling up to the crown of the head, allowing for the arms to reach over and then rolling back to the forehead. One more time. Rolling from forehead up to the crown of the head and rolling back into your child's pose. Now we're going to come up into high kneeling, so you may want to move that block away. Notice how this feels on the knees, and you can use some padding if necessary, with the hands clasped behind and no use of the hands to help you. See if you can lift one leg forwards and then bring that back in and bring the left leg forwards. Now we're going to take the foot forwards a little bit more now. So right foot comes forward, low lunge. Ensure that the knee isn't coming too far over the ankle at the front, and the hip point can release. So this area, ilias psoas, is releasing. That's really key here. With a sense of strength through the front leg here, we're going to sink over and allow for the arms to release up towards the ceiling, exploring how that action feels within the hip. We're then going to bring that foot back, come to the other side, come into your low lunge and do the same thing. Sinking forwards, exploring how that feels, and taking the leg back. Lovely. We're then going to release the hands, bring them forwards, and we're going to come into mongrel dog, so a very wide dog. So as we come up, the hands are spiraling to the outside of the mat, the weight is going down to the legs, and we're widening our dog more than we think we should. So I'm really going to accentuate the fact that you can widen those legs. And if you bend the knees, you allow for the spine to lengthen. And with a sense of a 3-point contact with the ground, we're going to look towards the left ankle and lift the right, We'll see if we can find our ankle or the shin. And this is why we need a short stance in order for there to be a chance of getting hold of the limbs. And if it feels like this is straining, you bring the hand back and then come to the other side. So see if you can get hold of the other ankle or shin. And if there's no chance of you getting there, it may be helpful to reduce the stance so the limbs are closer towards one another. When you come into your rotation, the gaze follows under the armpits. Bring the hand back. Now we're going to transition to Uttanasana forward fold. If you're feeling strong in the arms, you may want to do some bunny hops. This is optional. So if you feel like you want to bunny hop today, you can bunny hop, finding the strength of the arms. Otherwise, we're going to pad the hands forwards to come into Uttanasana forward fold. Bending the knees, hanging your head and spine freely, getting hold of the elbows. We're going to ring ourselves up here, allowing for the vertebra to move, stack one by one, bending the knees, allowing for the pelvis to move forwards as we come up into our Tadasana. The last thing, of course, to come up will be the head. And I will adjust as we go. So coming into your Tadasana mountain pose, you can just about see my top of my head. So feeling your footprint into the ground, you may want to lift the toes off the ground and lift up the heels, moving between these points, rocking and rolling, finding your ankles and that strength. And then we're going to bend the knees as though we come into Uttanasana chair pose. So we're sinking pelvis down, so the tailbone is moving down. So you've got this sense of strength and this position of the legs. So this is really crucial, the positioning of the pelvis to be fairly neutral. So you're not moving into lordosis, you're not too flat backed. Now from this position, we're grounding down through the left leg, crossing the leg over to come into your eagle, Garandasana. From this position, maybe if you found it when you were sitting or lying on the floor rather, maybe you can come into that double cross. If you've got walls or something to hold on to, that can be helpful. Finding your balance. You have the option of working just with the legs, or you can bring the arms into it, opening the arms wide. So it may be the case with the legs that you've just got one cross, excuse me. It's harder actually to come into just an individual cross. And then with the arms, we bring the right arm over the left. Either the backs of the hands come together or the palms of the hands. Ah! You can tell my balance isn't very good today. Breathing deeply into bellies, fixing your drishti or your gaze, lifting up through the elbows, sinking down through the hips. Eagle pose. Well done. And then ease out. And you'll want to shake out a little bit just in case anything was built that doesn't need to be built up in terms of tension. We're going to come to the other side. So right side this time, sinking down through the legs. Cross the leg over, double cross. Again, using support. If you're bringing the arms into it, the left arm comes over the right, crossing over through the elbows, backs of the hands come together. All the fronts of the hands sinking down, lifting up through elbows as you sink down with pelvis. Eagle pose, Garandasana. Finding your balance, using your drishti, and then release up and out, and spiral, and let go. Lovely. So this time we're going to come into goddess pose. Now with the sense of the tracking of the knees to the feet, find a stance that works for you. This is also known as horse. And it may be helpful to tuck the tailbone under, allowing for the pelvis to drop, with a sense of the pelvic diaphragm lifting automatically. That pelvic floor is not a floor, it's a hammocking of muscles, and that automatically lifts against gravity in this position. We're going to inhale, straighten the knees, lifting up towards the sky. Exhale, bring the hands down. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. With that sense of the quads working here, we're going to bring the hands into Lotus Mudra. Lotus Mudra, situated around the heart space. Born of the mud. And we're going to allow for that Lotus Mudra to blossom upwards. And then as we bend the knees, we're going to bring the backs of the hands together and move the fingers towards the front. Spiraling with the knees bent, bring the blossom of the lotus back into the heart space. We're going to straighten the knees, lift up your lotus, and then spiral the backs of the hands down towards the ground, coming out into a junction. So the fingers move forwards and then spiral back through. So the lotus sits itself in the heart space. Let's try that one more time. Lotus moves up towards the sky. Backs of the hands come together as we point down towards the ground. The fingers move away from the heart, and then we spiral the lotus back down and through. Releasing the legs. We're going to swivel the feet in towards one another. Warm up onto the toes, bend the knees, sink down towards the floor, and bring the knees down to the floor. So find yourself in kneeling Virasana. We're going to prepare to come into camel. So a strong spinal extension. And if you've got hold of a bolster, you can pop the bolster by the feet. If you don't have a bolster, maybe use a sofa or something behind you. So we're going to come into camel in one way first, and this may be preferred to the other ways of moving in. So when we come into camel this way, we're allowing for the front body to lengthen, including quads and iliopsoas, and the heart space comes into extension, shoulder blades draw together. So bring the hands, so the fingers are pointing towards the knees. We're going to lift into camel. The gaze is down, so the neck is nice and long. And then drop the hips down. Okay, so feeling into how that is, quite a lot going on in order to allow for this shape to come about into your Ustrasana, camel. The next stage that we're going to work with is in a high kneeling. So find yourself in high kneeling, padding under the knees if necessary. This is the lovely thing about doing it in the lounge, is you often have carpet and then various layers. Bring the hands to the back of the pelvis. And thinking about the pelvis moving forwards, we allow for ourselves to come into that shape. Keep the shoulder blades tucking towards one another, neck nice and long. Feel into this space within your body. Notice if there's crunching taking place into the lumbar. If there is, think about a lengthening. So you're thinking about lengthening the front line of the body, so there's less contraction in that one specific area. And then from this region, we can come back into Balasana with the knees together, coming into child's. Lovely release around the back of the spine. So you have that as an option. You can work between those points. And if you feel you want to come to the stronger sense of Camel Ustrasana, be warned here, this is going to be a lot stronger on your spine. You might be able to bring the hands back onto the ankles. So you've got 3 stages to work with. You have Ustrasana from the ground, Ustrasana with the hands behind the pelvis, and Ustrasana with hands on ankles. Now, we did work with the sternomastoid and release if you want to drop the head back, as long as it doesn't feel constricting around the back of the neck, feel free to do so. And then as you come out, you bring the hands to the back of the pelvis and come into your counter pose as you draw yourself down into Balasana. So you've got those 3 points to work with, either from the ground, which feels different, I think you'd agree, to where you work from high kneeling with the hands at the back of the pelvis, or coming into the full extent. 3 places to work with. Now let's finish in our flexion, because that's quite a lot to be doing within our spine, and come into downward dog. So this is purely as a counter pose to release the back of the sacrum and the lower back. And you can lock the knees, you can straighten the knees to allow for that flexion to take place, rocking the hips from side to side. Okay, that's really important. And then from this space, we're going to come down onto our backs. So I'd recommend rocking and rolling to get that spinal massage, if it feels right for you in your body. Really make the most of this rolling. Cheapest massage there ever was. And then make your way down into semi-supine. So bring your spine down to the ground with the knees bent and the feet hip width apart. And we're going to come back to our 2-foot support or Dvipadipitham, rolling up through the spine and easing back down through the vertebra, one by one. Okay, moving through those points. And this action must feel quite familiar to you. So you really give yourself an opportunity to undo anything that may have occurred. Lovely. Now we're going to go back to that point of lengthening out the left leg, dropping that long, heavy weight away from us. And we're going to do the same thing as before, releasing the arms out to the sides so we're fully relaxed. Except this time, the right hand, which is the same side as the knee that's bent, is going to come into a position around about the shoulders. Difficult to see from this position, but the hand is coming over and you may feel a stretch on the underside of the arm. Just notice if that's available for you. Doesn't need to be directly under the shoulder, it can be quite wide. And you've got the left side completely relaxed. Now taking the weight into the footprint, notice what occurs as you press down into the ground and you get this rolling. Now this is what my tutor picked up from a guy who teaches yoga in a monastery in France. It's called the Giovanni roll. They're just rolling from side to side. You'll notice how much the sense of relaxation is required here as you move through these spaces. Now we're going to release that side. So let's release by bringing the hand towards the shoulder, release the right arm away, the right leg comes away, and we draw the knee up on the left side. So now it's the left side with the bent elbow and bent knee. And we're going to do the same thing, allowing for a rolling action. Now on the other side, I felt this lovely stretch, as it were, along the back line of my body. This side, I don't feel that. Just notice any differences within your body. It's very likely one side will feel different. We're all asymmetric. We hold ourselves differently. Rocking and rolling from side to side. Notice how that feels. And then we're going to bring the hands around the shoulders. So the fingers are pointing towards the shoulders. And then we're going to bend the knees. From this position, notice whether the handprint will come down towards the mat. Okay, it's not a given. That's why we work a lot with our wrists and our shoulders. And then we're coming into 2-foot support from this action, okay? So rocking and rolling in between the vertebrae, releasing the pelvis down and then releasing the pelvis up on the breath. And just notice how that is within your body. Okay, so it may be the case that you're working between these spaces and you just find that helpful. You don't need to take it further. If your hands meet the ground fully and that handprint can make contact and you feel like you can take weight into it, as you roll up into your Dvipadipitham, you come into a Setu Bandhasana. Now from this place specifically, and I'll demonstrate for a moment, there is a leap of faith, knowing that the neck and the head need to be protected. Now, if you feel like you can take that leap of faith, it may be the case that you can come into your wheel Chakrasana. But when you come into Chakrasana, you need to be really careful about the head. And when you come down, you draw the chin in and you find your way back in the reverse of your Dvipadipitham 2-foot support. Okay, so there's lots of stages to work with. Be cautious about where your body is within space. Your 6th and 7th sense is your vestibular sense and proprioception. And proprioception is really developed through trying these things out. It's going to be really key for when you come up into a bridge. and just feel into where your body is at. Now we're going to draw the knees in towards the chest to come into flexion. Give yourself a hug. And we're going to roll from side to side. Now let's give ourselves the opportunity to come into an inversion. So if you're happy rolling along the spine, it may be the case that you want to roll yourself up and over into pose of tranquility. Or we have legs up the wall, Vipariti Karini, or we have waterfall where we bring the bolster or some padding underneath the pelvis. So you have to lift the pelvis up to bring the padding underneath, and that just intensifies. I would say if your lumbar feels interesting at all after camel, to definitely come into waterfall, because what's happening there is you're giving those spaces and those vertebrae some more space. So if you bring that bolster underneath, it's very common for there to be impingement around the lumbar vertebra. So if that's the case, bring a bolster underneath the pelvis, and you've got a really amazing way of just giving yourself an extra adjustment after spinal extensions, strong spinal extensions. So coming into your inversion, releasing, bringing the feet into flexion, so they're not necessarily pointed. So if I was in the space with you, I'd come and pop a brick or a block on the soles of the feet for you to focus that sense of balance. But you don't want to think about the tightening around the front of the iliopsoas here. Ideally, feel release into the front of the hip flexors, as we've done a lot to release there. It would be a shame to build up tension. Coming into your inversion. And indeed, if you're in your pose of tranquility, if you're in a stronger inversion, begin to consider how to release. So moving out slowly but surely, allowing for the vertebra to iron out one by one. Bring the gaze up so you don't get a sense of whiplash. And bring yourself into a ball. Now, if you came to pose of tranquility, or you want to try it, we're going to come into fish. Straightening the legs out away from the body. We're clasping the hands underneath the buttocks and bring the shoulders together. Now that action of bringing the shoulders together automatically lifts the thoracic, so the breastbone moves up towards the ceiling. The last stage is an extra lift, and it looks like you're bouncing on your head, but you're absolutely not. All the weight is taken into the arms. And then you release by tucking the chin in, bending the knees, removing the clasp of the hands, and bringing yourself into Shavasana, a Shavasana that feels comfortable for you. So if you want to bring a bolster or rolled up blanket onto the knees, please feel free to do so, allowing for the limbs to roll out from the midline. So you have this sense of navel radiation emanating from the navel, Manipura, and the heart space. They're intimately connected around this area of the torso, and the limbs splay out to the side of the body. Using some padding to bring the padding underneath the head to lengthen the back of the neck. It's really important. Sometimes it feels like maybe we shouldn't treat ourselves to the extra comfort of a little cushion, but I promise you there are many good reasons why that's a good idea. And obviously bending the knees if you need to. Surrendering into the ground beneath you, and I'm just going to roll up as we come into relaxation. So when we work with the energy around the heart space, Anahata, we're thinking about a sense of self-compassion, heart energy, a sense of softness, a sense of equilibrium and dissolution of separateness, and of course expansion. And this is very much about integrating this so it moves throughout our body. We don't just think about these areas, these energetic centers as being separate. So we looked at practices that involved opening the chest, expanding the breath. surrendering the ego, and then to follow on a sense of generosity, forgiveness, empathy would also connect with Anahata. And whilst you release into this relaxation, feel free to allow for my words to just roll over you. And I'm going to offer you a quote from Rumi, which seemed particularly relevant. So all of these practices are very much about noticing and a felt sense of what's occurring within the body. And Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And again, this is relevant to this movement from rigidity towards softness. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And I'm going to give you a few moments of peace for you to feel into the weight of the body, sinking down into the earth beneath you. Exploring any areas that feel any resistance. And if there are any regions that you find that feel a sense of resistance, could you acknowledge them? And perhaps allow for a sense of softness to come about without trying to change anything in particular. Just accepting anything and letting it go. Letting it to dissolve on the exhalation. And when we consider this sense of self-compassion, although we won't be using the whole practice this evening, we can touch upon metta bhavana, loving kindness. And I want you to bring to mind a loved one. This might be someone in your family, this may be a friend, and repeat the mantra internally within. We'll do this once. A very short practice for this evening. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. Internally repeating, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. And then dropping that visualization and moving across to a neutral person in your life. So that could be a stranger. That could be someone in the tea shop, that could be someone you've exchanged glances with, it could be anyone. With that visualization of that person in mind, repeating the mantra, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. And then dropping that visualization of the neutral person, bring to mind a difficult person. Now this can be anyone, this could be someone in the media, this could be someone that you've dealt with, this could be someone that you've dealt with due to miscommunication, could be anything. Repeating the mantra with that visualization of that person in mind, May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. And then dropping that image of the difficult person and bring yourself to mind. But whilst you bring yourself to mind, bring to mind the loved one, the neutral person and the difficult person. So you've got all four aspects, as though they're all four aspects of yourself, and repeat the mantra, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. Holding all of those four aspects, those four personalities in mind. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be at ease. And then drop that visualization, release. And notice how that feels. Allowing for your awareness to move wherever it needs to move to, acknowledging where it is, whether it's in the body, whether it's in the mind, whether it's outside of the body, within the space around the body that you're in. Maybe it's beyond. Just bring that attention back into the body, noticing the inhalation. Then invite you to the end of the following sound, roll over into a fetal position on the right side of your body. And then again, using the sound of the singing bowl, I invite you to ground down through your arms and lift yourself up into a seated position with the eyes closed if it feels comfortable to do so. Removing any glasses if you have them and putting them aside somewhere safe. And give yourself the opportunity to allow for everything to percolate through the body. Bring the hands together, create some heat as you rub the hands, and then bring those warm palms towards the eye sockets, feeling into the inner eye socket and the outer eye socket before bringing the hands down through the center point, bowing in acknowledgement of one another, and the space in between. Really allow for the bow to come in through the spine. Namaste.